podcast where people reach their goals and develop confidence one mind shift habit at a time. Let's join our host, certified coach Christina.
This episode of Conversations with Coach is sponsored by Christina Callaway Life Coaching LLC. I am pleased to announce that I will be releasing my first book later this year, and it's entitled The Mindset Playbook, a guide for athletes to help them identify and overcome mental and performance blocks. There will be information in the show notes where you can support my efforts. If this is your first time joining me here on Conversations with Coach, welcome. I am your host, certified mindset and confidence coach, Christina Callaway. I partner with athletes, parents, and coaches, and together we develop the tools to increase their confidence and achieve their goals, both on and off the field of play. Now that we've kicked off a new year, where is the housing market? Has it settled down? Are you wondering if you're going to be able to either sell or purchase a home? Maybe you're in the selling market and you're trying to figure out the best way to position your home so that it gets purchased. You've tuned in to the right episode. While you hit that share button, I'm going to explain to you what we're going to be talking about. On this episode, I am being rejoined by our resident mortgage broker, Tania Tinsley Little, and she is prepared to share some insight on this topic. Now, in case you weren't here the first time that she was, because I am still celebrating my 1-year anniversary for having my podcast, even though the official 1-year anniversary was back in November, I am super excited that I still have guests that want to come on as well as come back. So let me share a little bit about Miss Little with you. Tania Tinsley Little is a successful real estate broker and professional home stager and designer. She runs 2 distinctly separate yet complementary businesses under the Total Package brand. One of those is she's a residential real estate business, and then the other one is a home staging and design business. I've mentioned home staging quite a bit, haven't I? Are you familiar with that term, home staging? Or did you just think it was just for like the reality TV shows? Well, on this episode, Tania is going to just level it all out. She's going to let us know how we can get into this home staging for the benefit of our home sale. She is located in the tri-state area, North Carolina, but with the way that we have Zoom and we're all virtual now since the pandemic, you're going to be able to pick up some really good information on this episode, as well as reach out and contact her to maybe stage your home. I want you to put some love in the chat and help me welcome back our resident broker, real estate agent, and all around super great person. Welcome back, Tania Tinsley Little. How do you like that introduction?
Well, thank you so much.
Wasn't it so dramatic? Listen, I haven't figured out how to do all the applause and everything that you hear when other people are doing their podcast. So I have to like verbally do it. I have to be like the hype woman for myself. In other words, and my guests. I'm so glad to have you back. So for all of you who are wondering why I keep flubbing up her name, let me give you a little background. This is my cousin. And you know how when you become an adult, you let go of that name that you were called when you were growing up and you get your real name? I am so not used to calling her by her real name. I want to call her Mel so bad. And then I have to remember, wait a second, we're trying to be professional, but you know what? Here on Conversations with Coach, we keep it real. It's all about the simplicity of the conversation. So if you all hear me slip and call her Mel, that is the reason why, because my struggle is so real trying to keep her in her professional name. But welcome back.
Well, thank you. And Melanie is my middle name. It's Tania Melanie Tinsley. So Mel
Yes.
is my nickname. So that's fine.
Yes. And every time it's almost like with me, when everybody sees Christina, they're just like, especially family. Now, people who have just met me, they don't know any different.
Yeah.
But when family is calling me by that name, I know the awkwardness of it because I grew up as Tina.
That's right.
And I'm still Tina to my family.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't know if this is true for you, but I can always tell how someone knows me by the name that they call me.
That's right. Yeah.
If they call me Christina, I'm like, oh yeah, they're new.
Yeah.
And if they call me Tina, then I'm like, yep, we've known each other for a while. But I have had a few people who have fallen into that new crowd and they call me Tina. I'm like, wait a second, you haven't earned the privilege to do that yet. So that's the benefit of having those two names as well. You can identify your people and how they know you. So, Tania, as I mentioned in your introduction, we're having you to come back because there is just so much going on when the housing market, last year, you couldn't buy a house unless you were really coming out. And so the prices were up really high. And I know during the fall of last year, you and I got to see each other in person, and you were attending a conference in Atlanta. And so you were just talking about how the market, had started going in a different direction or reverse direction. And you were sharing about your optimism or the industry's optimism of it leveling out. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But for anyone who is just joining us for the very first time, and maybe they missed your first episode, which you're invited to go onto my YouTube channel to view, I want you to share a little bit more about yourself and your story and what got you into all of this.
Well, I moved to North Carolina in 2007 as the market crashed. My house was on sale in California, didn't sell for a year. I decided I was going to become a real estate broker, and got my license at the end of 2007, just as the market went. And so, but it was the greatest time to learn real estate, because what we experienced, in 2022, even part of 2021, where you put a house up and it's gone in a weekend or two. In 2007, that wasn't the case. And it was a much different market than it is today, even because people, lending was different. There were so many other factors that contributed to that housing crash. Okay. Yeah. And so it's not the same today. Mm-hmm. But I did learn how to sell a house in a down market, and staging became a part of that. One of my very first listings, and I didn't have inventory at that time, but I worked with the sellers, furniture, and we got the house sold. It had been on the market for a year and a half, hadn't sold, and I got the house. Yeah, I got the house, and she and I moved furniture around. I kind of had a few little things. We put it up, and it sold in 18 days at 98.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and that was in May of 2008. So we were still in that down market. That's when I knew staging, that there was something to staging, and from that point, I began to acquire furniture.
Absolutely. You've mentioned several things here that I want to make sure that we grasp, because I don't want the points missed. First of all, you decided to move. So you wanted to relocate. Not only decided, but you relocated, and you had never sold a house before. You decided, you know what? I'm going to get my real estate license. And you did it during a time when most people will be like, wow, wait, why are you doing that? The market's on a slide down. Do not miss this, audience. That means that you shouldn't allow what you see to keep you away from what you know that it is that you can do. At least try it. Yeah. Because if we never try, then the answer is going to always be we can't, and that we don't. So we definitely want to do that. And then the other thing that you've mentioned here is you jumped in with what you had. At the beginning, you didn't have an inventory to do staging, but you used what you had. And in using what you had, repurposing what your seller had, you were able to have success. Now, for all of those who are like staging, and you all are talking about staging, and I think I know what it is. I'm not really sure. The only thing I've ever had association or familiarity with this, like I previously said, the reality shows where they don't really live in those homes and
Right.
they're staged for that. I want you to share with the audience what exactly staging is and why it is so important to a seller.
Well, staging is actually preparing a home for market. I mean, there's a lot more to throwing a sign outside in the yard and saying, hope somebody buys it. That's not what we do. Okay. We're full service. And when I say that we stage a listing or we take a listing, we actually work before we get that sign in the yard to get the house show ready. Right. And what I call ready for prime time. So just like you wouldn't show up at a job interview after rolling out of bed with your pajamas on, right? Then we don't put a house up in that way either, because the way that we live and the way that we sell are two different things. And even if you have a nice house and it's not, there are things that when you put a house on the market, you're opening up to the wider market. So you have to actually capture a lot more people. And so we want to depersonalize and we want to set that house up for success to sell at the highest price that we can. And that's part of staging.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned that with your company, you all are a total service when it comes to the staging. And you also mentioned that before you even put the sign up outside, that there are things that you do. Let's talk about the importance from where staging begins, like what specifically your company does from the outside, working its way inside for your clients.
So we walk through the house. If it's empty, I walk through to see what the rooms feel like. I may look at a floor plan. I'm looking at, what rooms are difficult or maybe shaped funny. What rooms is that buyer going to walk into first, or where I want to capture them right away? So a buyer's make a decision within 7 to 10 seconds of walking in that house generally.
Wow. Wait a minute. Yes. 7 to 10 seconds.
Yes. 7 to 10 seconds.
Fast. That is super fast.
It's fast. It's the way that it feels. And I can tell you that when I am working with a buyer and we walk into an empty house, there's definitely a different reaction than when we walk into a house that is staged or presented nicely. The feeling when someone walks in and it feels good. Oh, this is so nice. As opposed to when they walk into an empty house, what are they going to say? I mean, you're looking at walls and you're looking at floors. And they're looking at what they're doing in an empty house is looking for all the flaws. Whereas furniture that's furnished nicely, that is not too taste specific, a buyer walks in and they go, oh, this feels good. We're selling a lifestyle. And so that is why the staging becomes very important.
Wow. Selling a lifestyle. As you were talking, I was imagining each part of what you said, what it would look like if it were completely empty and what that would feel like. I know for me, if I walked into something, I would feel cold, even if it was like the middle of summer. I think I would feel cold. However, having it with furniture in it, even if it's not my furniture, it gives me, because I'm a very visual person, it gives me that visual that I need to see my pieces and where they work. And that is for the outside attraction for the buyer. But thinking of myself in the selling position, to your point, the more that I can have that it will distract from little minor flaws, the better. Because nothing's perfect. But at the same time, as a seller, I want to be able to optimize the price that I'm offering. And if all of the little imperfections are visible, that's going to not work in my favor. So it's almost like I would think of when we as women, when we get dressed or we go and purchase certain pieces of clothing, there are certain, depending on our body shape, body type, hair color, etc. We want to pick clothes that accentuate our look as opposed to enhance the imperfections. And it sounds exactly like what you're doing with staging.
It is very much like that. It's like fashion for the house, really. And that comes with colors, that comes with what size furniture to put in, what type of furniture, what price am I trying to get? And does the furniture match? Right? And you have your old college, chair or do you have your Archie Bunker recliner in the front room? That's not going to garner a lot of, ooh, this is beautiful. So that's something that I'm moving out. I'm like, get rid of the recliner and let's dress it up.
Yeah. So when you're going through with your client, you're doing the walkthrough, as you said, from the very beginning, you're walking through, you're taking a look at the way things are. Obviously, this doesn't apply when you have a blank slate that you can
Right.
work with.
And I love a blank
However,
slate more than anything.
I'm sure you do. And that's what's leading me to this question. When you encounter a client who may be resistant to the removal of some of those
Yeah.
items, how do you overcome that objection to let them know that the reason you're suggesting them is so important as it relates to the staging?
Well, I always encourage sellers not to personalize what I'm telling them, because as I said earlier, the way we live is different than the way we sell. And even though in my house I'm pretty picky about how things go and where things are placed, and my family say we're not a staged home, but that's just how I live. Not everybody lives that way, and so I tell people, even in my house, I would have to do some staging because I'd want to take out some of the personal pieces and put something else in. So it's not about what you have personally. It's really about opening your home up to the wider market and making sure that we get you top dollar. Do you want to get top dollar for your house?
Absolutely.
Then, and so that, and it's a small price, it's a small thing to do to move some things around. I can work with things. We just did a house where there's a St. Bernard living in there. They got 2 kids. It's a total family house, but they agreed to go ahead and do some painting. I brought in some pieces to enhance what they had, and so it makes it. When they came home, they're like, "Whose house is this?"
That is a testament to your talents and your skills. If the homeowner comes in wondering if they are in the right house or if they're in their house. So that is an excellent testament to you. I want us to shift a little bit now that we know what staging is, now that we know why it's so important. And before we go into, I want to make sure that the audience is listening and hearing that there has to be a mindset shift when you go to put your house on the market. There needs to be an immediate mindset shift from you're detaching from it. This is where I've been. I'm no longer so attached to it that I close my mind off to any suggestions that can be made by a stager. And so when you make that detachment from I'm no longer here, but I'm already where I'm going, it can help you to get to the place where you're comfortable with the suggestions being made by the stager. I would like for you to share what are some do's and don'ts when it comes to staging, and I'm sure there's a good list.
There is. So one other thing I wanted to mention is decluttering is the other part of that beginning process, because you've got to take out all the clutter. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay,
really important. All the stickers off the refrigerator, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. But the do's and don'ts of staging is not to, the don't of staging is you don't want to crowd a space. You don't want to be taste specific. As I said, you want to open it up to the market, open the market up. So, putting in really bright colors or strong colors is not suggested, because some people like bright or strong colors and some don't. And some could have an adverse reaction. Red is one of those colors.
I can see that.
Okay, it's a color that people say, well, I don't like red. To paint over that, it's going to cost me all kind of money. People, our buyers already have all of these things in their head. It's not really that hard to paint red, but it's one of those colors that might put someone off. Gotcha. And so you want to be neutral, right? And you want to bring the color in and the pops of color in the pillows. You might put a little bit in the rug, in the decor, but you're not going to put it in the furniture. Most of my furniture pieces are very neutral. And then we build, and then I take a rug. I start with a rug, and that's really the inspiration. Okay, so then I'm going to build from that rug. And I build the furniture and the artwork and then the pillows, and that's how we build. And so it's really important that the furniture pieces are neutral, because I can use those pretty much in any house, right? But change it up with the artwork and the pillows and the rugs.
Right. So you've been doing this approximately 15 going on 16 years that you have been into the real estate market as a broker and also as a stager. And what would you say is the most difficult thing to which one of these would be the most difficult for you to transform? The home that someone has been living in and they raise their entire family in it, or the individual who has been in their home less than 5 years?
Well, that's a good question, and I would say that depends because someone that has lived in their home for 20 years, but if they've updated and done things and changed things out, then that house might be spectacular. And I've had one of those, and I just added a few things. Someone that's lived in their house 5 years, but lived in it pretty hard, can be, even if it's 5 years, depending upon lifestyles and things like that. That can it varies, is what I would say, based upon time of as far as 5 years or 20 years. The time is really not that much of a factor. It's really how that person has lived in that home. And whether they have done those projects every few years, right? Because when you buy real estate, it is an investment. You need to invest in your real estate. You need to change the colors. You need to update the light fixtures. You need to do these things periodically so that when you get ready to sell, you don't have all this stuff you have to do. You've been able to enjoy your home with those updates.
That's exactly right. To your point, I've been in my home now 10 years. And it'll be exactly 10 years in a few months. But you and I talked back during the fall about when we met up, I had my whole color swatch. And because I am in the process of repainting my entire home from top to bottom, closets and everything. Like, I'm doing complete transformation, and that's a huge project to undertake. However, my reason for doing it is not because I'm putting my home on the market, but to your point, that I just want to bring new life into it. I think we as individuals, every decade brings this new sense of, anytime you move from your 20s to your 30s, or, and you go through this transformation.
Right.
And to your point, the home that you live in deserves that same thing, because I am not the same person I was 10 years ago when I moved into my home. And I want it to reflect, there to be a reflection of that. And to your point, if I ever get to the point where I am in the market of selling, then I've just taken quite a few big dollar ticket repairs off, because I've already done that.
That's right.
I want to ask you, so let's say now we know what the do's, we know what the don'ts are, we know why it's important to stage. We also know that even if you're not even thinking about selling your home, but you're wanting to keep it fresh and up to date, that regular routine maintenance and repairs and updates are excellent and good. But let's say for our audience that, it's a new year. So they're thinking, okay, how everybody jumps on the new year, new me. So they're on the new year, new house, time to relocate. I want to hire a stager. What would you tell them that they should look for when they're hiring a stager?
So when you're hiring a stager to sell your home, if that's what you're asking, you want to make sure that stager has inventory. We have a lot of stagers out here. Some people rent their furniture, from the rental places, but you want to make sure that stager has an inventory of furniture. You want to look at a portfolio of what they've done. You want to talk to people that they've staged homes for. You want to make sure they have insurance for the home, for the furniture that they're bringing in, right? All of those things are really important. Staging you can write off on your taxes. You can
really,
you can, and so, but you want to make sure that stager is professional and that they consult with you first. They should have a contract that you sign. It should be very clear about what they're providing. When the term of what the terms of that contract are. Payment. Time period, etc. All of that should be very clear when you're hiring a stager.
So you mentioned that, or you asked me the question staging as it relates to selling. What other types of staging do you do, or that are available to be done for people?
Well, when I say, some people ask me, would you come in and, I have this room that I don't know what to do with it. Could you come in and tell me like how to set it up? And that's more of a redesign. And so we will do that. We'll go. And I have a neighbor who had asked me last week, could you just come by my house? Because she'd seen some of the homes that I've staged, and she walks in and said, my neighbor, she goes, I can't believe this house looks like this. So she said, would you come by my house? I wanna do some updating, and I'm not sure So we'll do that as kind of a redesign. But also we can stage for commercial. We can stage somebody, they have something, they're taking pictures for 1 day or 2 days. We'll go in and stage it and then take the things out. So that's why I asked you, were you staging it to sell, or were you, staging it for rent, or, there's different things that we can do.
So does your company also, your staging company also, I know we just came through the holidays and so have you all also do those types of staging for events?
You mean to set up for Christmas? One of my designers does that. She actually does Christmas. She does Thanksgiving. She does Halloween. And she does some gorgeous designs. I don't personally do that, but she does. She sets things up for huge homes in the area, and it's nothing like you've ever seen. And it's really tastefully done, It's not the big old blow ups out in the yard.
Right, exactly. As I said in the very beginning, no, there's not. But if you're wanting to take it to the next level,
the next
level is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier, some people's recollection might be the home staging that gets done for TV shows or the homes on TVs and that sort of thing. But I also know that there are people who go way out for birthday celebrations or anniversaries, and they're really wanting to just transform. It might be that they want, especially when it comes to birthdays or anniversaries, that they're wanting to recapture a previous period, depending on the number that they are celebrating. So I wanted to put that out there. Now, you mentioned that you have somebody on your team who does all of the holiday staging. And that sort of thing. What if somebody's listening and saying, you know what, this sounds like something that I could do? Did you have a specific background before you started doing staging, or how did you know that this was going to be a part of your company?
So, design and fashion has always been a passion of mine. My mom had a knack. She could pick up a piece of furniture and, from an estate sale or garage sale, she just had that vision. And so she passed that on to me. Now, like I said, fashion and furniture. It's very simple. It's very similar. Like I say, I love furniture almost as much as I love shoes. So that I'm just going to say that. It's true.
Hey, we love us some shoes, y'all. We love shoes, period.
And my grandmother had that. My grandmother on my dad's side, she had beautiful furniture. Just gorgeous furniture pieces. I actually have a table that I'm sitting at right now that was one of my aunts. They had this thing about furniture. So I love furniture. And so the thing is that, we talked about changing, updating your house. There are classic pieces, just like you might have a classic blazer or jacket. That I have one that was 30 years old. I wore it out the other day. Someone said, where did you get that jacket? I said, this is 30 years old, but it's a classic. So I can take that classic and put it with something else, right? Something new. And it changes the whole look. And so that's part of it. And I just love that whole thing. You see, I get excited about it. But
you do. Listen, I'm impressed with the fact that you had, first of all, that you had it 30 years later. And number two, you could get in it.
Oh,
listen. Yes, ma'am. Okay. That is important.
Good pieces. If you buy good pieces, whether it's clothing or furniture, it will last you. You buy the classics, and then you can change. You can add a little contemporary. You can add but you have your basic pieces, and that goes to for fashion.
Exactly. Now, we talked about, or we touched on it a little bit about the market, and it's so unpredictable, and we're at the beginning of the year, and all fingers are crossed and all breaths are being held that it's going to make that turnaround. And I want you to just say or share with the audience, irrespective or including, what is the difference? Do you stage differently when the market is like it was this past summer in 2022? Or is it when it's on the down, do you have to stage differently?
Staging is staging. And so what we discovered, what I have discovered in my years of real estate agent, is whatever listing I put up is always staged. It doesn't matter. Down market, up market, I don't care. Flat market, it's always staged. Because in an up market, it's going to sell for even more. In a down market, it's going to sell. And so it puts my clients in an advantageous situation.
Yeah.
So what we found, though, was other agents weren't staging their homes in 2022. 2022 is just, it was crazy. You put a house up, it's gone.
You have time to stage it.
people were just throwing stuff up, and someone was coming. I'm bidding 25, 50 over, and it looks a mess. So what we found was, though, that when we staged homes, even in that crazy market, we had homes going for 100,000, 150,000 over. You know why? Because the buyer walked in and fell in love with the house. They see other things on the market that they knew they had to bid over, but walking into a listing that is staged professionally, they're willing to go higher. So it can never hurt you. The staging is always beneficial for that seller to stage that property. Always.
Yeah. I'm going to flip the script just a little bit. So the entire part of our conversation has been geared on staging for the seller. Okay. Because that's who it's for. It's to help the seller. I want you to share just three little secrets, 3 little tips for a buyer walking into a staged home.
And what you mean tips as far as what they're seeing or what
they're seeing, how, because as you said, you're creating this illusion with the eye. And sometimes we can get caught up in the emotion of it and we might miss a key point. So if you are an agent representing someone purchasing a home, what would be maybe 3 things you would point out to them to look for?
Okay, so for buyers, so what I will say is this, that residential real estate is an emotional buy.
It is.
I can't take that away as a seller or take that away as a buyer. So that's what we're working with, which is why the staging is important. But if I'm representing a buyer, and like I said, when I walk into a home and that's empty or one that's staged, the reaction is very different. It's very clear. But as a buyer's agent, when I'm representing a buyer, what I'm pointing out to that buyer is things. I'm looking at the ceiling, right? I'm looking to see if there are any marks on the ceiling that may have been leaks or any old leaks. I'm looking at the flooring. Is it even? I am, we look at the windows. We're walking through just to determine, is the house sound? But even beyond inside the house, typically, I recommend that buyer open up the door if there's a crawl space and peek inside the crawl space. Yes. And I don't walk in crawl spaces. I let my contractor do that. But I'll open the door. Is there a smell? Is there a smell in the house? Is there a funny smell in the house? Because if you smell mold or you smell mildew in a house, that's a clue that something's going on underneath. There might be water. There could be something there was water damage at one point. So there are things that when I'm walking a buyer through that I'm very clear about showing them as we walk up to the house. What are the gutters doing? Are there gutters? And if they're not gutters, if that water's coming down, right? And so we talk about you might want to put gutters up here because water coming down constantly without a gutter can affect your foundation. And so we're looking at those kinds of things, cracks in the foundation, and that doesn't always tell the story. Sometimes you'll see a crack in a brick. That doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, there's a structural problem. It could just be a movement crack. It could be, we have red clay. You guys have red clay. And so red clay moves. It moves. And so you're going to have settlement cracks. That's okay. And so really train that buyer on what the difference is between a settlement crack and a structural crack. So those kinds of things are what I'm pointing out.
Absolutely. I just didn't want any of the audience to think, oh, well, this is just one-sided. No, we're going to put the whole picture out there the best that we can on Conversations with Coach. And we could go on and on talking about this subject, especially because it's the first of the year and everyone gets caught up in the whole hype of newness and resolutions and rebirth. And, as we get ready to segue out of winter into spring and positioning our homes in the best market. And I appreciate you so much for coming back on and for sharing your knowledge. Every time I talk to you, I always learn something new. And don't you worry, as I continue to go through this process of repainting, I'm going to have you on speed dial to help with my anxiety once they get started. So I appreciate you so, so very much.
No problem. You call me if you need me.
I definitely will. This is how you're going to be able to get in touch with Tania. Yes, she is in the tri-state area. However, if you don't live in the tri-state area, that is no reason at all why you cannot get in touch with her. She is able to do consultations via the internet. And as you have already witnessed, she is a well of knowledge, and I want you to tap in on it. You're going to do this by reaching out to her and following her on her social media. She has the best social media posts out there. They are so thought-provoking. They are so engaging. Engage with her. Give her feedback so that she will know how to serve you. She's made it easy for you to follow her on Instagram and Facebook at the Total Package NC. And also go on her website. Remember, she said home stager worth their weight has a portfolio, and she has beautiful images of her work on her website, the Total Package NC. Tania, before I let you get out of here, for the final thoughts, what is the one mindset shift this new year that you would like to leave with the listening audience when it comes to staging in any market?
I think the mindset I would leave with your audience is to take a project every year and do something with your home, because it will benefit you in the long run. And you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can say, 1 year, I'm going to replace the light fixtures on the main floor. The next year, I'm going to replace the light fixtures on the second floor. 1 year, I'm going to paint. And so you can do it in stages. No one has to go broke upgrading and updating their home. And you know what? It makes you feel better. As we start this new year, when you do something at your house and you come home, it's like walking into, it's like getting a new pair of shoes. You know how it smells when you get a new pair of shoes?
Yes.
Oh, shoes. So it's just like that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. You are absolutely right.
Yes.
You are absolutely right. I appreciate you so much. And that is great advice. And I'm glad to hear you say it, because once I started this idea of repainting my entire house, all of a sudden, all the other things popped on the list. And I'm like, hold on a second. I don't have to do all of these all at once. I can do one at the beginning of the year. I can replenish my funds and do the next part toward the end. So I can have January to June projects and July to December projects. Because one thing that we know for sure, if you are a homeowner, your project list is forever going to have something on it. You will never run out of projects for that list. Tania, thank you again for joining me. And I'm going to say goodbye to my audience. I'll be right with you. And there you have it. Welcome to the new year. Welcome to ideas on how you can get your home in tip-top shape, regardless of whether you're going to sell it or not. But just like Tania said, even just for the bringing in the new year and having something different to walk in on that you're going to continue to be proud of, and it's going to give back to you in return. I thank you so much for supporting me and following me into this new year. I would like for you to share my social media with your friends and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. Yes, I even have a TikTok and a Pinterest account, and they're all at Christina Mindset Coach. Some might be a little bit more active than others, but hey, it's the new year. I've got an opportunity to grow in that area as well. And let's say it's the new year and you're wanting to get your mindset kicked off on a positive note. You're wanting to increase your confidence, but you just have some areas that you're really struggling with doing it on your own. No need to do it on your own. That's what I'm here for. Reach out to me on my website and schedule your free clarity call, and let's you and I discover how we can partner to help you to reach those new goals for this new year. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you here next time. And remember, your life is only as good as your mindset. Happy New Year.
Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Coach. Please be sure to follow Coach Christina on all of her social media platforms. And remember, life is only as good as your mindset.